We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
And I have so much I could be bringing up on the program tonight. I had to do some extras because I'm probably not going to get everything all in, because I had a few stories that came up into the ether that I was going to talk about this week. Right off the bat, I was looking at one story where they talk about men aren't asking women questions on dates. It's a problem. That was from one story. Another story was about, when it comes to dating apps, women no longer have to make the first move on Bumble. Will it make the app better? That's a new story that just came out from NPR's Morning Edition. Then there is a relationship coach giving top tips for using AI on dating apps as the auto erect trend is gaining popularity. There's a lot here. I don't know auto erect trend. Here's what we got. The term, by the way, because I just can't go ahead and just say that without moving along. The term auto erect refers to a person using ChatGPT during a sexting session. And that's, auto erect. Oh my God. Anyway, we'll get onto that later. And then the other stories I could have gone after and said, oh, well, would you be happy as a long-term single? Depending on your attachment style. And then an expert also talking about, what was else there? Oh, that's right. Same story. Oh, is therapy cool now? Young people embracing therapy and therapists are welcoming the revolution. These are all stories I can bring up, but that's not the story that we're going to talk about tonight. No, we're now at the point where the modern American woman now is being fed, indoctrinated, and being put into the mind that, I don't need a man. I don't need, a man to take care of me, protect me, watch over me, provide for me, support me, build me up. How about this? In Korea, they have a movement called the 4B movement. This is another thing. Now, Elle Magazine put a story out about this back in March, but there's been more stories about that because, this discussion started initially from there. And now a couple of months later, now it's starting to hit more places. And the talk of the 4B movement is now coming on. Should women start boycotting men? Rebecca Mitchell writes this in Elle Magazine, saying that women are boycotting men due in protest of rampant misogyny, or misogyny as you might hear on some other shows. So there's a viral TikTok about the 4B movement. At the time, it got 900,000 likes. A TikToker named Jeannie discusses how women in South Korea are basically boycotting men. I'll play this for you and let you hear it.
So done with Korean men that they're literally just deciding to die out. Y'all heard of the 4B movement? I'm a big fan. Korean women literally just gave up on their men. They're fucking assholes. They're not gonna change, so we're all gonna go extinct. Which they literally are, by the way. Korea has the lowest birth rates in the world. It's really bad. But I just think that's so fucking funny. That's also very Korean. Korean as an ethnicity is about to go away, and Korean women are literally just I think it's so...
Okay. Does anybody think there's something wrong with that? I mean, it's one thing if you want to go and be yourself, but okay, now what? Women don't want to be pregnant anymore? I mean, do you think they're going to have the same success going around finding surrogates? Or, what other methods can you do in vitro? Do they really feel like that's going to be the way to go? And the encouragement is very selfish, isn't it? Why would women want to go and take that route? Or take a Korean, Korean culture would do that. That's crazy. So getting into the story, they said that Korean women are so fed up with misogyny that they're going on strike from heterosexual relationships and all that would traditionally imply, which includes birth and marriage. And that's the reason why South Korea has a plummeting birth rate. They have the lowest birth rate in the world, 0.78 compared to a global average of 2.3, I guess, kids per family. The 4B movement has plenty of incidental supporters well beyond Korea. And now, it all started online. Of course, somewhere, this is what's going on with social media and the internet and some of the ideas that are being sprouted out there that can get really viral really fast. So on a YouTube channel, YouTubers Young Se Young and Barek Hana are credited with the origins. The two encourage women to reject traditional feminine roles like marriage and raising children, arguing that marriage was the root cause of patriarchy. The no marriage and subsequent 4B movements are the culmination of gender-based protests happening throughout South Korea in response to issues like violence against women, femicide, revenge porn, and a spate of secret spy cams targeting women. Also part of an extension of the Me Too movement, which began in 2017. In the ideology, resisting marriage and childbirth is the only way a woman can live autonomously, given South Korea's deeply entrenched patriarchal customs. Traditional. Okay. The 4Bs in the 4B movement are these. Bihon, or no marriage. Bisekesu, no sex with men. Bichulsan, I don't know if this is right. If I'm butchering it, so I'm sorry. No child rearing. And Beone, no dating men. There are 4Bs, and that's what they're doing. No marriage, no sex with men, no child rearing, no dating men. It's funny how simple those words are for women to go and follow along with. And it reminds me of Tom Likas, the radio show host that really talked to men, the Likas 101 course. And for those of you guys out there, 8 words to save any relationship, you know what they are, go along with me. Long hair, stay thin, sex anytime, shut up. One more time. And I said it just the way he said it. Long hair, stay thin, sex anytime, shut up. Interesting to go back to those days, but yes, it was something that's out there. And by the way, you can still find it on Twitter or X. Tom Likas still has it out there for that. Now back to the story here from Elle. TikTok has nailed the vibe. Women are simply fed up. And some are inclined, why wouldn't 4B exist? And recent catalysts, they say, include high-profile murders of women. So they talk about the instance of a young man murdering a young woman at a public bathroom, claiming that he did so because women ignored him. And police wouldn't classify the incident as a hate crime. They talk about revenge porn and spy cam sex crimes. A 25-year-old woman shared a photo of a nude male model at an art school. Non-consensually was sentenced to 10 months in prison. The movements are finding large communities online while women are flocking to share their grievances with other women. They're not necessarily talking about this in such a large scale. But again, this story came out from Rebecca Mitchell, a senior writer at Elle Magazine, and then spreads like wildfire. So we get other stories that are going along with this as well. And this is what's scary about this. SBS News in Australia brings up this story. They're talking about the story here. No dating, no sex, no babies, and no marriage with men. The anti-men 4B movement. Fed up with gender-based violence and traditional gender roles, these women are swearing off men, believing they were beyond redemption. Now, some of this also, when you hear that, it makes it feel like, well, okay, so it's all men's fault that women cannot be accused or culpable of anything. Of course, there are bad actors out there. Of course, there are men out there that are narcissistic, manipulative, controlling, abusive. There's no doubt about that. For various reasons. Listen, men are traumatized and also going through traumatic events, and they also get screwed up just like women can. But to go this far route, the extreme level of like, okay, now how many women are doing this because something happened to them? And then how many women are doing this because they feel like they're doing this in support? But meanwhile, nothing might have happened to them. Maybe they were spared any particular traumatic events or issues, any emotional trauma. So a group of women on a video call were swapping tips about living out the F4B life, according to this SBS News article. Vanessa, 56 years old, from Florida, says no eye contact with men is a great tactic because it's just a glimpse. The slightest glimpse is just an open invitation. She goes on to say, if you have to walk down the aisle of the grocery store, use the opposite way. This is a little bit too much. This is overkill. But this story's out here to try to go ahead and stir the shit up. Let's just make sure it's clickbait. You know this. They even give a content warning for distressing content. They go along here, and another woman goes into this call and says, to me, it's a man. I know I need to stay away. Some cast blame on women for continuing to associate with men, and others encourage others to denounce religion. So the TikTok movement is going on with this. The popularization of 4B started in the mid-2010s in South Korea. A sister group created last year is now getting attention in Western countries, including Australia. So now there's a new movement. It's called the Pseudonym Supreme. It's a 4B group for women in Western nations inspired by the women in South Korea. Here's a little bit of that.
About the 4B movement is the outpouring of women who are realizing how much of a good idea it is, and the outpouring of men who are like, they can do that. I know it's a fairly recent thing, man, but yeah, women can get their own homes, live their own lives, and do basically everything that they want to without centering men around their lives. And it's very telling to think that this is a threat to you. You would think that some of you would see this as a step towards getting rid of the patriarchy and removing some of the stress in your life around being a traditional man, even though some of you may still want to be. But with the 4B movement, women don't need to center men around their lives because women don't need men to survive anymore.
I've taken some quotes from Esther Villar, the author of The Manipulated Man and the Polygamous Sex. And I have gone back to those books, and I must tell you, for men, you must read those. Those are required reading materials. I would also say The Millionaire Next Door, but either which way. I want to take a comment that will help to support my comments here about this whole thought of destroying the patriarchy. So Esther Villar wrote in The Polygamous Sex, female power is the foundation of all other power structures. Social power structures that do not rest directly on instinct can never be more than superstructures. Their leaders can rule only in areas of no special value to sex partners and protégés. A system that disregards the power of the really powerful sex is doomed from the outset. It cannot gain adherence. It is by the power of the dominant sex that all systems function at all. Without the consent of women, there could have been no fascism, no imperialism, no inquisition. Men could not have become the tools of such systems had they not been ruled by women. Only a person attached and subservient to another through his basic social instincts, a man with a family support, typically, can be sucked into the treadmill of such a secondary system and be driven to commit acts of hypocrisy, terror, and treason. The power of woman is the root of force in others. Women have power. We talked about the power that women have in their vulnerability, their softness, their sexuality, and their beauty. We talked about that where Preeti Opala talked about dharmic feminism, and we played a clip on the show. And by the way, if you want to hear the whole episode, it's on my Podcasters Row podcast. Go look for that right now at kickofpodcasts.com. You can hear more about that. But the thing is that women are being manipulated here into this idea. The Korean outcry right now of the 4B movement is absolutely extreme. And for women to think that they need to destroy the patriarchal system of marriage, of children, of family, because they need to have more control, or it doesn't work for them. That's just giving up. That's surrendering the idea that you just can't make it with a family. You can't make it as a mother. But there's power in who you are. Women, all women, beautiful, smart, determined, driven, supportive. All these different things that, men don't have it easy in the form of trying to go ahead and satisfy women in this current day. It's not. Even back then in the 70s, it was always that part. Men can't talk about this, and that's one of the things she talked about as well. She says that, but even if men wanted to read the truth about their condition, women would still be the decisive factor. Though both men and women read, women are in addition to big consumers. Since women do most of the buying, most advertising campaigns are aimed directly or indirectly at them. Since most Western papers are financed largely through advertising, they cannot risk displeasing women by their editorial content. The day on which they do so, they would hear from their advertisers in no uncertain terms. Men would not stand a chance, if they wanted to publish independent opinions about women, of being published in any medium addressing both sexes as a great majority do. Now, my point is that there's so much being directed towards women to support women, to bend the knee to women, to be subservient to women. It's happening so much. I mean, something like this, to encourage this part, it's taking away from the guys that really want love, that want to be loved, that want to give love, because you're punishing them. there are plenty of guys like that. They're also the ones that you probably don't want. Remember that. Because there's also the part of women also doing what they want to do to be able to hold on to the women, the men that they want. Right? The other part I'm really surprised by is how there would be women that feel like this is a good idea instead of the financial possibilities and opportunities that come with marriage and children. Okay, think of all the women that are single mothers, and think of the fact that they can get child support, they can get support from federal programs, whatever there is, or the women that are, getting alimony from a divorce and child support, and being completely supported by the man after divorce. Because remember, the man gets nothing by getting into a marriage. I'm surprised that women don't try to encourage more marriage just to get what they want. But this encouragement also makes it where women are going to be made independent and running on their own. And I've already talked about the fact that on this program a few months ago, women struggle to go ahead and make the income they need to be able to go ahead and live the life they want. They want to be able to have that supplemental income, that extra discretionary income, but they can't make that kind of income and live the way they want to live. Which is always where a man came in for that picture, right? We've talked all about that. And let's just say this, we also know why there's femdoms, why there are sugar daddies and sugar babies, because women are looking for the supplemental income. And they'll use their feminine prowess to get what they want. Remember, what is it the guys get from making the attempt here? We only care about love. We don't care about what money you make. We don't care about the career that you have. There's so much that doesn't really matter that women think are important for themselves that men don't consider. We don't need to worry about that. Again, we're looking for various attributes about yourself that come who you are. Right? Softness, vulnerability, beauty, and sexuality. Those 4 tenets are wonderful. And there are lots of women that have that. But they've been indoctrinated and brainwashed to think that's not good. But those attributes get you someone that you want. And you can reject whoever you want. And if you have, the right opportunities in family structure and the right people around you encouraging you to do well, then you'll get the chance to. Another quote from Esther Villar in The Manipulated Man. As a result of love, man is able to hide his cowardly self-deception behind a smokescreen of sentiment. He is able to make himself believe that his senseless enslavement to women and her hostages is more than an act of honor. It has a higher purpose. He is entirely happy in his role as a slave and has arrived at the goal he has so long desired. Since woman gains nothing but one advantage after another from the situation as it stands today, things will never change. The system forces her to be corrupt, but no one is going to worry about that. Since one can expect nothing from a woman but love, it will remain the currency for any need she might have. That's women pretty privilege. Maybe just the feeling of a man being loved by a woman like her and all the things they love about her. Man, her slave, will continue to use his energies only according to his conditioning and never to his own advantage. He will achieve greater goals, and the more he achieves, the farther women will become alienated from him. The more he tries to ingratiate himself with her, the more demanding she will become. The more he desires her, the less she will find him desirable. The more comfort he provides for her, the more indolent, stupid, and inhuman she will become, and men will grow lonelier as a result. Men are lonely in relationships, and men can be lonely without. That's a pretty important point. How many men are in empty marriages and soulless marriages where they feel like they're just not getting out of it? So in some cases, for the guys, yeah, okay, so you don't want to be married, you don't have kids. Well then, for someone like me that didn't ever plan on kids, okay, if that's the way you want it. To look for marriage, the legal system doesn't help at all. I mean, it's so easy to go and get divorced. And so do you really want to go that route as well? Now, we just talked about the story when it comes to what was being reported from Elle Magazine and from SBS News. Now, it also made it into the Johns Hopkins Hospital newsletter. The students of Johns Hopkins University. There we go. This story came in here. We can all learn from South Korea's 4B movement. Isabella Madruga writes this. She writes in here, quote, until the majority of South Korean men and government officials agree with that, the 4B movement will continue spreading throughout South Korea and the world, bringing men an opportunity for self-reflection and women peace. South Korea is at the bottom of the gender income disparity rankings, 31% difference in pay between men and women, despite its high GDP and standing as a developed country. There is a female president now in place, or a conservative president now, that says that in that country of South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, claiming that structural gender discrimination no longer exists and wants to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. But it was a survey they had polled 1 in 3 Korean women have experienced some sort of gender-based violence, and their perpetrators were most likely current or former romantic partners. But remember, there's also a rape culture that's being instituted here. Is it as bad as people say it is? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, show me the story. Show me the facts that really are out there. But that's the part that, nobody's really talking about too much. This the movement saying, oh, this sounds like a good idea. But do you understand? This is also being done out of extreme issues with the men in South Korea, obviously. Now, in the story, she says here, the 4B movement isn't organized or centralized. It has no leader, no official website, no physical building to go. This writer, Isabella Madruga, takes things a step further. She talks about how nobody knows how many women are followers of the movement because it's so silent. Well, I'm actually amplifying it. Men, you need to pay attention to this. If women are starting to get caught up into this idea, it's almost like a religion, watch out. I want you to be aware of this. And ladies, I want to just be able to call it out to the floor. If you've heard about it, I want you to reconsider. And I understand if you're upset and you feel like either you or others have been affected by various issues of emotional trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all this. It's horrible, unacceptable, undescribable, unfathomable. And any man that thinks that they can go ahead and have their way with women in that way, needs to be jailed or worse. Now, women, they're saying it's that men who need women to live, not the other way around. And women might take it even further, cutting off friendships with women who might only talk about makeup, dirt, clothes, and boys, distance themselves from their male friends and buzz their hair off. But that's the beauty of the movement. One could go so far as she seems necessary in completely decentering men and focusing on her personal growth. Now, this is too much. And this young lady writing that right there in the story is trying to take it that level, who take it even further. Now, she quotes a story that talks about this. And I haven't looked at the story yet, but let's go ahead and pull it up real quick. The Cut that talks about this as well. And they go through the story and saying that's what one of the things that's also being done as well. Just to cut everyone off. And I'm like, wow, that's really going out there. And here's more of the story from The Cut. For a movement born of rage, what happens when the rage mellows or when other concerns take priority? There you have a story here with one of the people they feature here. It says some of her friends are selective feminists, foregoing makeup when they meet up with her, but are ultimately not ready to give up the advantages that come with being conventionally attractive. Quote, they cannot let go of this power as women of using femininity. These are these feminists who say, oh, I'm a feminist, I hate men, but I also want to be, consumable. She and her friends describe videos on YouTube of these kind of women who told viewers that they've seen the light and returned to heterosexuality, narratives that recall the profusion of the, quote, trad wife content online. This is how far things go. And by the way, nobody's giving any guidance on this. So if women wanted to take this 4B movement to the ultimate extreme, they could. And what is that going to do to them? This is not a safe movement to go into. To completely go this, it just goes against everything that is meant to be what men and women are all about. And a sociology class that Isabella takes, she said they recently discussed this topic. One person raised the question, why don't we just try to bridge the gap between men and women? Why should we continue to fuel the gender war? She says there is no gender war. Women are generally not pursuing the warlike tactics the way men are. Men are psychologically and physically torturing women who dare to oppose them. That's a pretty strong statement. Women's dislike and sometimes hatred of men stems from fear, as men are much more likely to commit intimate partner violence. Men's dislike and a lot of time hatred of women stems from insecurity and rejection. You know, they're probably talking about incels here. I don't think this is really so much like they're talking about here. They retaliate with murder, rape, and violence, and with sexual assault being used as a weapon of war. That's the real gender war. Now, that is taking us so far. Again, this extreme thinking here, is this really logical? Is this really based in reality? Is this grounded? And that's the problem I got right here. So taking this idea of South Korean women, are they necessarily happy or safe? And, you know, is it getting any better for them to do that? She says here that the 4B movement is far from perfect. The obligatory not all men statement rings true here. Some feminists have equated stereotypically feminine items, such as makeup and clothing, as anti-feminist, which may shame women who are generally interested in these things. But the beauty of the movement is that it's not mandatory, as a woman can take it as liberally or conservatively as she might want. How much power and how much autonomy does she have, among other women? Because women can be very tribal. Women can be also very manipulative and narcissistic and controlling and bullying as well. Let's just be clear about that. So she goes on to say that women should not need men to function, and they should decenter men for their lives. They should lead happy, fulfilling lives without the need for a man. If one happens to be in it, then great. She quotes Cher, quote, "A man is not a necessity but a luxury like dessert." Focusing on their own lives before being with a man and then growing as a couple is the secret to an equal relationship for women. Now, let me put it to you like this. This is as depraved and debaucherous for women as you could get. Let's just call it clear. This is pretty out there, but this is acceptable now. And this is now out in the ether, and all it's going to do is spread like wildfire. Men, do you understand what's going on here? Do you realize the extremes that are being put out here of this thought process? Thinking this is a good idea? Oh boy. But remember, it's this kind of thought process of women being modern women and feminists. Here's the other problem you got to think about as well. I mean, in America, it's not so much that anymore because, you know, what's happening now is, and it's been interesting about that, the men that approach women now more than often are the guys that women don't want. Because guys like myself, you know, that would like to be in a relationship, that would love to be in love, would love to know what love is like. I'm one of the people that goes along with this story right here. Men aren't asking women questions on dates. It's a problem. Professor from Inside Hook. And Logan Mahan talks about that. And says that, she goes on to say that, I can remember the number of times I've asked a man a question thinking that at the bare minimum, he'll ask me the same one in return. But no, he's not inquisitive of my family or my job or my taste in music. After he's finished his long-winded answer, there's just uncomfortable silence until I fill with another question for him. Am I the one keeping the conversation going? I am the reason I had a fun time on this date. I am a tiresome jester who is being paid in dirty martinis. Since it had been a significant amount of time since I was entrenched in the dating scene, she first thought it was an isolated issue, a bad streak of dates. But Shannon McNamara spoke with her about, and this is on the podcast Fluently Forward, she talked about her dating history, saying, I had 5 dates in a row with different guys over a month, and I remember realizing I wasn't getting asked any questions. As McNamara recalls, not even simple softball questions will be lobbied back. You ask somebody, quote, oh, where did you grow up? And then you expect them to just ask the same thing in return, not even come up with a question of their own. I thought maybe it was just a fluke of the guy, but as these dates continued, I realized not only am I not getting asked any questions, I'm not even having my own questions returned to me. And McNamara went on TikTok and talked about it and asked users on the app for advice on how to approach the issue. Many users recommended a classic tactic, the silent treatment. Here's what she said.
I've been dates lately where the date will be 2 hours long and the guy will ask me 2 questions over the course of 2 hours. And one of the questions will be a question I asked and he'll be like, and what about you? And it's crazy. Like, also, not like, I have a cool job. I'm a full-time podcaster and I will get some guys on dates not even asking what I do. And I'm curious, right? Probably part of being a podcaster. So someone will be like, I'm a consultant. I'm like,
Do you make decks? Do you travel? Do you like it? Do you like your coworkers? Where do you travel to? Like, so many questions, because people are curious. I am. And my main question is, I can't do this anymore. So like, how do you vet if somebody is going to ask you questions before you go out on a date?
So that's what she asked. I'm going to tell you this. In my experience of what I've always learned about dating, now I'm not the best opinion about this, but one of the things I always remembered to do in dating, when I went on the first date especially, was ask open-ended questions, because the date will be going well if she's talking. If you're having to go ahead and carry the conversation as a guy, then you feel like things are not going well. So we've always been trained about the fact that, oh, we want the woman to be chatty Cathy. We want her to be talking away. And we learn about her. That's the whole point. We're not asking questions as you would think, because we learn about her. We learn about what you're saying and what you're asking about. You know, I mean, if we ask a question, it's open-ended. We're not going to just ask, you know, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite family? What's your favorite team? No, those things we can ask about later. But it's more like learning about for me, it was always about analyzing a girl. What makes her tick? What is she all about? What is she interested in? What's her passion? You know, what are the things that she talks about, thinks about? Like, let her kind of open up and organically create that, and then fall off of that. Because honestly, I thought it was always important for a guy on a date to listen. And it's just a matter of like, well, hopefully she's the one that's going to help, you know, to be able to want to discuss things. Like, I mean, I don't know. I didn't try to ask a lot of questions because I don't want to be interrogating, because it sounds like if I do that, we've always been taught that well. It's like it's really kind of a light way of doing it. And so 2 hours, you ask 2 questions, but she's the one that was like asking all the questions. Like, okay, well, you know, he'll answer, he'll give something, but it's like, he's not necessarily worrying about it too much. So in the story, they talked to Blaine Anderson, a female dating coach for men and founder of Dating by Blaine, saying the lack of curiosity on dates comes less from a place of self-absorption, although that can certainly be the case for some men, and more from a place of nervousness. And she goes on to say that it is easy for them to just talk about something that they know rather than thinking about thoughtful questions to ask. Unfortunately, the men who aren't asking questions on dates are likely oblivious to their behavior. So if you're never reflected upon your attentiveness, this be a wake-up call, she goes on to say. Regardless, if you're dating a dating man interested in having better conversations and in turn better first dates, and you should be, quote, you don't want to fall into the category of peppering her with questions so it feels like an interview. You also don't want to be the other side of the spectrum that you're not asking any questions. Yeah, it's not a perfect science here. It's not a great formula. But you don't know how the woman's going to react. You know, I mean, one thing I learned, definitely don't ask a lot of questions, but also there is no perfect idea of like how many questions you should ask. Like, I don't know. It's like how many times, you know, how many days do you wait before you call her back after the first date? Or when you get her phone number, like how long do you wait? And I'm like, I don't know, but pretty tough to go and do that. She says here to clients, aim to keep her talking 70% of the time, and they're talking to 30% of the time. 70-30. Which again, okay. I mean, that's, if the guy's asking 2 questions in 2 hours, it might be like more 80-20. So maybe you ask one more question in the 2 hours. Something like that. I don't know. But that's a lot there. I mean, it's too complicated. It's not, the thing is now is that, you know, you already know that you're already spending money on the date. You're already spending on spending time with her. There's just all that going on. Like, oh man, this is so difficult. But now we're at the point where women are considering just to go ahead and just say, fuck it. We're not even going to worry about getting into relationships. We're not going to worry about, oh, well, we don't want to be mothers. We're not worrying about having kids someday. No, nothing like that. That doesn't matter to us. No, it don't matter to us at all. No, we don't need marriage. We don't need your alimony. We don't need your child support. We don't need to be mothers. So the 4B movement is really fueling the idea for women to just be depraved and debaucherous.